الثناء بحمدك، وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وهلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الظل، وكبره تكبيرا. الله أكبر. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه، ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه، ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره، وحمده الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يده، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما، إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إنا عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي، أتمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك، فإن أبت عني أتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبت عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك عليه. يا ربي إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي وأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك. فارحم عبدك الجاهل، وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك، مجري الفلك، مسخر الرياح، فالق الإصباح، ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق، باسط الرزق، فالق الإصباح، ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى، وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله، ولا شبيه يشاكله، ولا ظهير يعاضده، قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظماء فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أناديه ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي. فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني وبهجة مونقة قد أراني فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يحتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين والصادقين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وسفوتك وأحل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. وصل على السبتي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي هججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتضل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المم به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وأعزز به ظلتنا، وأغن به عائلنا، واقض به أم مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجح به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، وأعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشف به صدورنا، وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق. آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآل محمد، وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله، وبضر تكشفه، ونصر تعزه، وسلطان حق تظهره، ورحمة منك تجللناها، وعافية منك تلبسناها، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. رحم الله من قرأ سورة مباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم رب شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن وافترست على عبادك فيه الصيام، صل على محمد وآل محمد، وارزقني حج بيتك الحرام في عامي هذا وفي كل عام، واغفر لي تلك الذنوب العظام، فإنه لا يغفرها غيرك يا رحمن يا علام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم برحمتك في الصالحين فأدخلنا، وفي عليين فارفعنا، وبكأس من معين من عين سلسبيل فاسقنا، ومن الحور العين برحمتك فزوجنا، ومن الولدان المخلدين كأنهم لؤلؤ مكنون فأخدمنا، ومن ثمار الجنة ولحوم الطير فأطعمنا، ومن ثياب السندس والحرير والاستبرق فألبسنا، وليلة القدر وحج بيتك الحرام وقتلا في سبيلك فوفق لنا، وصالح الدعاء والمسألة فاستجب لنا، وإذا جمعت الأولين والآخرين يوم القيامة فارحمنا، وبراءة من النار فاكتب لنا، وفي جهنم فلا تغلنا، وفي عذابك وهوانك فلا تبتلنا، ومن الزقوم والضريع فلا تطعمنا، ومع الشياطين فلا تجعلنا، وفي النار على وجوهنا فلا تكببنا، ومن ثياب النار وسرابيل القتران فلا تلبسنا، ومن كل سوء يا لا إله إلا أنت بحق لا إله إلا أنت فنجنا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم، من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل، أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم، المشكور سعيهم، المغفور ذنوبهم، المكفر عن سيئاتهم، وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية، وتوسع في رزقي، وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل بي غيره. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان، أو يطلع الفجر من ليلة هذه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. إلهي وقف السائلون ببابك، ولاذ الفقراء بجنابك، ووقفت سفينة المساكين على ساحل بحر جودك وكرمك، يرجون الجواز إلى ساحة رحمتك ونعمتك. إلهي إن كنت لا تغفر في هذا الشهر الشريف إلا لمن أخلص لك في صيامه وقيامه، فمن للمذنب المقصر إذا غرق في بحر ذنوبه وآثامه. إلهي إن كنت لا ترحم إلا المطيعين فمن للعاصين، وإن كنت لا تقبل إلا من العاملين فمن للمقصرين. إلهي ربح الصائمون وفاز القائمون ونجا المخلصون، ونحن عبيدك المذنبون، فارحمنا برحمتك واعتقنا من النار بعفوك يا كريم يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. سورة مباركة الفاتحة.
رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، مالك يوم الدين، إياك أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله أوله بلا أول كان قبل وآخره بلا آخر يكون بعده الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا حبيبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل وعليه الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الدائم على أعدائهم وغاصبي حقوقهم ومنكري فضائلهم ومناقبهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، قال أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام في وصيته: وأن لا تبغي الدنيا وإن بغضكما. صدق أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام. صلى الله على محمد وعلى محمد. In the continuation of our discussion of the will of Amir al-Mu'mineen, we are trying to look at some of the very philosophical and mystical dimension in regards to the will of Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen, which was given in this very month of Ramadan after he was injured. We spoke about taqwa last night. Usikuma bi taqwallah, as Amir al-Mu'mineen mentions to his children, and which is for all of us because he clearly mentions it, that make sure that this will reaches to everybody. He mentions to his son that this will should reach to everybody. And we looked at the different levels of taqwa. Just as a recap, we said there's a very simple basic level of taqwa where an individual is focusing upon that he should be avoiding haram and he should be fulfilling the wajibat. That's a very basic level. However, as it gets deeper and deeper, it goes to the level where one is or want to be in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time, in the closest proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like for example, when Imam Sadiq alayhi salam used to put the ihram, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. After putting ihram, when he was giving the talbiyah, which is the pronouncing labbaik Allahumma labbaik, he would go unconscious. When he would go unconscious, then the companions will sprinkle some water on his face. He will come back to conscious. And then he will say, why did you do that? I was in proximity with Allah. There was no more multiplicity. I was one with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I was fana with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that type of closeness is also taqwa. Although Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is always in the state of taqwa, but they always want to be in that state. All of these astaghfar. Why did Rasulullah Khuda did astaghfar? Although he's a masumeen, dua say fi sajadi, other duas that are there for masumeen. Their seekingness of forgiveness is to teach us, number one, and number two is also to be in that state of proximity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which they are not in the sense that they have to speak to Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, and they have to sleep, they have to wake up, which they don't even want to do that. They always want to be in that state of proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as they asked Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam that, when the Israel came and wants to take the ruh of Nuh alayhi salam, he was in the sun. And then he asked, will you allow me to go to the shade? Israel said, okay, go to the shade. So he went from the sun where he was standing to the shade. And Israel asked him two questions. One is, how long was your life? He said, it was just from the sun to the shade. That's how he felt, 2,500 years. Right? He felt nothing. It went so quick. And then he asked me, in Akhir Zaman, ages of the people will be 60, 70, 80. What would you do? He said, he'll spend all his life in one sajda. Right? So, Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, they always want to be in that state of sajda, in the sense that having that presence as Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdi, in that state. Right? And if they are not, for example, they are engaged with other activity, that astaghfar, that sort of, remorse is there, which they may not for themselves regard that as of that highest level of taqwa. That's why the Prophet, he made Salatul Layl wajib upon him, although it was not wajib, but he made it wajib upon himself, that he will perform that. So that's what, there are different levels of taqwa, that we have to realize. And we as a followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam must always aim for the highest, because they are our teachers, they are our leaders, they are our guide and exemplars, so we should follow them in this case. Now, tonight he mentions that, oh my children, be far away from the dunya. Do not engage yourself, do not entertain yourself, do not go after the dunya. Even if dunya comes after you, even if dunya comes to you, be away from this world. Obviously, when we look at the existential reality of the dunya or the cosmological reality of the dunya, it's been mentioned by the philosophers, by the Masumeen, by the Quran in different ways. For example, dunya is known as the adornment as well, as a means of test. You know, Allah in Surah Kahf says that I have created the world, and this world is a zina, as a zinat, as an adornment. And when you look at the tafsir of Masumeen alayhi salam and the scholars, they say that this adornment actually means a test. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ, as it says, أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنَ عَمَلًا, in order to see who will perform the best amal. So dunya becomes a place of test to see how we perform vis-a-vis the dunya, in front of the dunya. And then we achieve the reward. If there is no test, there is no reward. Because there is test, there is a reward, right? So it, as a matter of fact, becomes a wasila, a means to achieve something higher. That's what we find. Like for example, in the Surah Hadid, there's a very beautiful verse. If you help me with the Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, in which, you know, there are different levels of the dunya clearly mentioned, which describes the different stages of human life. You know, as it says, for example, is a lahwun wa la'ibun wa zinatun wa tafakhuru baynahum. You know, as in lahab, you know, it's known as a play, lahab. And that's the beginning stage of human life, that a child, even if you give them pots and pans or a box or something, it plays with it. You know, it doesn't really matter for the child. You know, it makes some noise. You know, even if it's valueless, it becomes it's like a play. So Allah is saying in Surah Hadid that dunya is nothing but a play. You know, it's a lahab. And then after that, it becomes la'ib. You know, lahwun wa la'ib. And when it says la'ib, it's like amusement. Because when a child becomes a bit more understanding, then it needs toys. You know, something that is amusing, you know, for the child. After this, boxes or shoe boxes, it doesn't play with that. It needs some sort of amusement to it, right? And then after that, then the child becomes a teenager, it's adornment, clothes, makeup, you know, watches and all that. You know, that's another stage of life. You know, from that baby stages to a bit of games and whatnot, then a bit of teenage years, right? And then after that teenage years, the next stage, which the Quran points out to, is the mutual boasting. You know, it tends to boast oneself, right? Tends to kind of show off, you know, that a person is young, you know, muscle, you know, gain, so on and so forth, right? That's another stage of life, you know, probably in 20s or late 20s. After that is competition in wealth. You know, وَتَفَاخُرُ بَيْنَكُمْ, you know, do faqr, you know, there's a competition in wealth. I have this property, this house, this trip, that trip. You know, some sort of competition comes about, the Quran points out to. This is the norm of the dunya. You know, not mu'mineen, but in the general sense, that's what we see, you know, in regards to what goes around us. And then competition in wealth and children, you know, I have this many children, I have this many grandchildren, so on and so forth. I mean, Arabs at Jahiliyyah at that time, they were so jahil that they would go to the graveyard and they would say, Al-Hakumut Takasur, whose graves are more? Is our tribe is of a, you know, more population, so our graves are more. Your graves are less, your population is less. That's how the Arabs were at that time. Al-Hakumut Takasur hatta zurtumul maqabir, right? So here the same way, you know, and it is natural. You know, for example, when somebody asks you how many children you have, you say, oh, I have 7, I have 8. A person kind of feels, I have so many grandchildren, you know, feels happy from inside. It's very natural and it's good to have, you know. As, you know, these days, on the contrary, on the opposite, the modern and the postmodern period was saying less children better, you know. But now, once again, things are changing I was just, listening to the vice president. He was saying, I want more children in America or something. He has mentioned in one of his speeches, right? So things are changing now. Anyway, so here, dunya has been described this different stages. That's what dunya is, right? But at the same time, it's an illusion, but at the same time, it's a means and ways to achieve something that is higher. Now, that's what we find, for example, in the narrations in hadith, where it usually, see, when you are advising someone, you would rather, first thing that you advise is of warnings. Although, you're going somewhere, for example, even for Hajj or Ziyarat or something, the first thing is you'll say about, be careful, there will be pickpocketing, or, be hydrated, eat well, sleep well. We always advise something that is worrisome, rather than say, oh, you're going there, enjoy, and this and that. But the first thing, somebody who is mature, somebody who is a father figure, would always advise those things which are kind of like worrisome, right? So that's how you find that the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in the Quran is as well. First thing they are advising is that just be careful. You're in the dunya, be careful of the dunya. That's why you will find so many of narratives where it tend to kind of, be negative towards the dunya, which we all share as a reminder. وَعَلَمُوا أَنَّ كُلَّ فِتْنَةٍ بِدُرْهَا حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا. Know that, وَعَلَمُوا أَنَّ كُلَّ فِتْنَةٍ, all of fitna is actually the fitna of worshipping the dunya. Love of the dunya is all of fitna. And that's what we find in this whole sort of history of mankind. If you look at it, it's all because of they want position, they want to be the king. Even they have killed their fathers and put their fathers in prison. All of these, some of these dynasties that are there, that were there, they have done that. Or leave aside Mughal, even the, non-Muslims as well. When it comes to power, they, Caesar, Julius, Romans, and the same thing, right? How they've, got their fathers killed and whatnot. Just for what? To achieve that maqam, to achieve that dunya. So we have seen continuously in history that has been the case, right? Hubbud dunya ra'su kulla khati. The love of the dunya is the head of all, mistakes or faults, right? Somebody who loves the dunya in that negative way, in that material sense, loving the dunya. That's why al-mal maddatu shahwat. Mal is considered to be as the foundation of all, lust, shahwat. Mal, money. Now there are different types of shahwat. There's even shahwat of position. I want to be of some sort of maqam, and that's also a shahwat of maqam, right? And the mal is that. Okay, if I have mal, if I have money, then I could be whatever. Even if I'm, not a person who have gone to study or anything, but I have the money, and through this money I could become the president, or I could become the, minister or whatever, just because of the money, right? So that's what the Imam is trying to point out to, money or material wealth is the foundation of many of shahwat that is there. Now, having said that, one of the ashab of Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam, whose name was Ibn Abi Ya'fur, he tells to Imam, sixth Imam, that I love dunya. Then the Imam asked him, what is dunya for you? He says, with dunya I go for Hajj. With this dunya I get my children married. With this dunya I spend to help people. Then Imam says, this is not dunya, but this is actually akhirah, right? So if somebody is working, and there was another narration which says that there was a man who saw the fifth Imam working in the fields, and he was sweating. And this person said, oh, this is the right time to kind of taunt at the Imam, right? So he goes there and he says, what are you doing? And what will happen if you die in this state, working for the dunya? And the Imam replied that if I die in this state, I have died in a state of ibadat. He says, why? Because I am doing this so that I don't go to people and ask for money. I am doing this for the sake that I accumulate, that I save, and that I use this for my living. That's the fifth Imam. So a person who is working hard to make living is nothing but considered as ibadah. Although it may portray like, or it may look like, for example, somebody is working for the dunya, but it's not, right? And that's why they say that, one should work for this dunya. The seventh Imam have mentioned in the hadith, I have the reference, work for this dunya as if you're going to be living here forever, the way one should work. But it depends the intention of yours. If your intention, like as it said, for helping others, for yourself, for taking care of the family, so on and so forth, that is actually not considered as dunya. But at the same time, one should be awake, one should be vigilant, one should not be carried away. The possibility of being carried away is there. Even for that second, something comes in my mind, oh, this is me, for example. That even, it has its negative effect. That even that thought that I am more than others who are poor, for example, that little thought, that little behavior, that smirk, for example, can really take us to hell. You know what I mean? That's why Anbiya and Awliya and Prophet, in one of his du'as, he says that, La takilna ila ghayrik wa tarfata aynan abada. Even for the blinking of my eye, oh Allah, do not leave me by myself. I always want you to be present with me. Even that blinking of my eye, if I forget you, I don't know where I will end up with, right? So always in that presence. So you have this element or this aspect where, the Ma'sumin and the Quran have talked about dunya being something that is very negative, but at the same time, it is the most positive ever that one can imagine. It is this dunya which have hosted Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, right? It is this dunya which had the capability of bringing the Quran down, right? It is this dunya by which, we ascend to the level of awliya and closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where we come, ashraful makhluqat. It is this dunya, right? So it is this dunya which have that capability and capacity to do so, right? So if one kind of focuses a bit more, now the question is that, how can we avoid that? How can we avoid dunya? There are different ways and methodologies being pointed out. For example, one of them say, okay, to avoid the dunya, always, eat less, zuhud, asceticism, charity, so on and so forth. That is there. But at the same time, if we focus the dunya from the existential point of view, as in what is its reality, what it is actually. For example, there was this great scholars who are known as Ikhwan Safa, Bradaran of Purity. If you Google them, you will find them. They were amazing philosophers, scholars, Ikhwan Safa. They were actually Ismailis, in terms of their belief. However, their writings, their books are quite fascinating. Based on the Quran and Hadith, once again, all of these scholars who have gone in the past, who are philosophers and mystics, whether that be Sadra or Ibn Arabi or Ikhwan, their understanding of reality is based on Quran and Hadith of Ma'sumin. The whole irfan and mysticism of Ibn Arabi is nothing but, the Dua Arafah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, right? That's what usually happens. You see, when, Ma'sumin alayhi salam, they will deliver things in a form of dua and hadith. Later on, the students tend to compile it in a form of different sort of disciplines. For example, Usul al-Fiqh is a discipline which can be seen in the teachings of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. Kalam, theology, is a discipline taught separately as a subject, as a discipline, which is in the speeches of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq and Ma'sumin alayhim salam. Irfan the same way, mysticism the same way. The students, they tend to compile and make it as a specialization, of these different knowledges in different fields, right? So here, Ikhwan says that there are different levels of existence in terms of the cosmological reality of the dunya. This dunya, which is known as the mulk, is nothing but, a watered down version of the malakut. And this is also true in the hadith of the 8th Imam. Hassanzadeh, I just remember now, mentioned this hadith, that whatsoever is happening here and whatsoever we have here is nothing but the shadow from the malakut, from the jabarut, from the higher world, which also echoes the teaching of Aflatun. Plato also mentions this, that this world is a world of shadows. The archetypes and the real world is that the world in the spiritual realm, right? So this dunya is nothing but the reflection of that. What is in the heavens, what is in the angelic realm, what is in the Jabaruti realm. And this world is the watered down version of that. So we should approach this dunya as something that is divine, something that is very sacred. Now, how we will approach this world as something that is divine? Through the divine, through the Quran, through the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, not through my nafs. If I look at this dunya from my nafs point of view, it will be very low. It will be based on my intellectual capacity. It will be based on my intentions, not in the intentions of Ali, not in the intention of Fatima Zahra salamu alayha. So we have to look at this dunya as something that is divine, but through their lens, through the lens of Amirul Mu'minin, through the lens of the Quran. When we look at the dunya through their lens, then this becomes very spiritual. This becomes ma ra'aytu illa jamila, right? Even masaib, even musibat, even troubles and difficulties, trials and tribulations, they all become beautiful, right? They all become amazing, right? And that's why Amirul Mu'minin says, whether that be death, whether that be, difficulties, they all become, what was that? Hazrat Ali Akbar alayhi salam says that of, I see death going, the father says, Imam Hussain says, I see a caravan and death going towards this caravan, which is a bit scary, but Hazrat Ali Akbar says that what difference does that make when we are on haqq? Whether we go towards death or death comes to us, because we are on the truth. Right? So if that is the vision of a person in regards to the dunya, then it's the best of the dunya. Right? So this, as based upon that philosophy of Ikhwan, if you look at it, this is the mulk. Right? This is the earth, which is nothing but the reflection and the watered down version of the malakut and jabarut and the lahut. There are different levels of creation. And our life is that, to understand what existence is, what our life is, what things are around us. As they say, wujud bima huwa wujud, existence, coexistence, to know things. And when we have the ma'rifat and understanding of things, then we will be not fooled with it. Then we will not be, amazed or amused or carried away with it or be in that trap of it, because we are aware of that. We know what it is, right? So the other explanation, or what do you call interpretation, which is more philosophical, which we have seen done by Sadra, which is one of the great philosophers. Sadruddin Shirazi, he was known as, who have walked to Hajj and to Karbala many times from Iran, and he has written many books. I purposely bringing these names because it's important that we familiar ourselves with these names. We reflect. Sometimes we try to kind of research and investigate. The names might come up. Sometimes some people tend to misuse these names, to keep us away from the track of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Rather, when we look at Mullah Sadra's life, he says that when I used to get stuck in philosophical problems, I will go to the ziyarat of Hazrat Masuma. I will do one ziyarat, my issues and problems that I'm facing in philosophy is resolved, right? So these were the people. And some say that he was going on a journey to Hajj, on a walk, and he died on the way in Karbala, and he's buried there, because we exactly don't know where his grave is. However, he comes up with a philosophical principle, which I spoke a little bit without giving the name on the first night, and that is the substantial motion, which is known as harakat-e-jawhari. The movement in the jawhar, in the substance. Everything is moving towards kamal and perfection. The dunya also is moving towards kamal and perfection. The time is moving towards kamal and perfection. Our nafs, whatsoever is existing, is moving towards kamal and perfection, right? And once again, this is based on not his sort of idea, but he has reflected in the Quran. For example, when the Quran says the mountain changes into clouds, is the Quranic verse, which means that something that is solid and hard changing into something that is subtle, soft and latif, that's a kamal of that thing. Something from hard changing to latafat, that's a kamal of that thing. Nafs-e-insan from this world changing into more latif nafs, more sort of ruh, in entering the barzakh, having that capacity and capability to enter and see, that's the kamal of the nafs, you see. So the dunya, as in dunya, is also moving towards kamal, because it is from this dunya where the akhirah will be built. This dunya will transform to akhirah. That's why, the ayah of the Quran says that when the mu'mineen, inshallah, will see the fruits in Jannah or some of those things that they will have, they will say, oh, we have something similar in the dunya. How did it reach there? It reached from here to that level. The fruits and all that, the taste and all that, it has reached to that level of perfection and kamal. Where did it start? It started from here. It started from this dunya and it has reached to that level of akhirah, right? So therefore this dunya is also, evolving and going towards the kamal. And the akhirah will be from this dunya. The akhirah will be made from here and will be similar to this, to this reality that we have. So what it requires of us, as they say that, this dunya will become the witness of your actions, right? This very place that you are here, wherever you are sitting, this will have as it's going towards the kamal, right? As it's going towards the kamal, this earth will have the capability and ability to speak. This wall will have the capability and ability to speak and say that, okay, this person was sitting next to me and listening to the mad of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam. It will bear witness on the day of judgment. When you're driving somewhere, you stopped on the, service station, you stop in a, rest area and you prayed there. That earth that you have prayed, why? Because nobody have seen you, but you have prayed there. And this earth will say that, oh Allah, this person prayed on me, on this spot, because he remember you, because his namaz was becoming qaza. So he really quickly, exit and came and prayed and he left. So this earth at this present time cannot speak. But on the day of judgment, because it is going towards kamal, gets the ability to speak, to bear witness, to become the gawah, because it's going towards the kamal. So this world, if we look at it, this dunya, if we look at it, as it's evolving, as it's going towards the kamal, we should be facilitating that, helping that. Through what? Through doing good things on this earth. By being good on this earth. Through that, it goes towards the kamal. That's why I remember, on the first night we mentioned that there are some places on this earth in which no sin have been committed. They are pure and pure places. And Allah chooses that to be the chambers for the awliya. Those places becomes the grave of the awliya. And that's why when you go closer to that place, you naturally starts to feel calm. All of these haram of Masumeen alayhi salam, right? When you go there, you are like, in a state of calm and peace and tranquility when you reach that way. Why? Because that earth is so pure. That earth have reached to a state of, that transformation, have reached to that sort of level of qurb and nearness. And as this earth and as this dunya, as this place have reached to that level of qurb, as it is already qurb, that's why when you pray, it is closer. The dua is accepted. You know what I mean? That's why they say that, the dua under the dome of Imam Hussain alayhi salam will never be rejected, because that earth is already so close to the heaven. Right? So if one approaches the dunya from that angle, yes, it has all that negativity in there, but at the same time it's very pure. It's very beautiful. It's the best place, that one can be. And it is this very place, now that's a third sort of view or understanding in regards to the dunya that one could have, that can be reflected in the philosophy or in the principle which Ibn Arabi have spoken, which is the divine reflections of the asma, of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Having there's a gradation, of the names of God. There is a different levels. Thank you very much. There's a different levels of this manifestation of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this dunya also have that capability and capacity to reflect that name on a level. So if I, as an individual, as a person, purify myself, who is capable to see those names in this world. So a dunya can be a veil, a hijab, depending on my sort of, intention, what I'm doing. Or this dunya could be a place where I could be able to witness those reality, those beauties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah have clearly mentioned that in the Quran, that wherever you turn, there's my face. But I'm not seeing that face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is that face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. Wherever you are, I am with you. but I cannot see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is because of this dunya have become that veil. But if I approach and I see this dunya as in reality is nothing but the reflection, the manifestation, it's like a mirror. Dunya is like a mirror, as they say. I mentioned this last year as well, a poetry just came in Farsi. When you see yourself in the mirror, that is you, but not you. But in the same way, the dunya is Allah and not Allah. The whole creation is Allah, but not Allah at the same time. So, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Khaliq, His khilqat should be seen in this dunya. Through this khilqat, we reach to Allah. Every year, mashallah, we hear this birth and that birth. Recently, I have my cousin, he became a grandfather. May Allah bless them, right? Different face, different features. Every person is different. It's so beauty of Allah, right? Amazing, fascinating. Just like how one wave that comes near the ocean is not similar to the second wave. The same way every child that comes is a different face, is a different sound. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala beauty. That's how beautiful Allah is. And where it's taking place in this dunya, right? So if we approach the dunya in this fashion, that if He is the Khaliq, the khilqat is there. And fascinating types of, makhluqat, creation. Just among the human beings we see, just among the animals, plants, different creatures. If He is, if He is Razzaq, He is Raziq. Look, that risk can be seen here, right? So the same way, if we take the veil out and look at the divine names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we could basically discern and see those names here and engage with them. And that's how our scholars were. Like, for example, I saw, Agha Bahjat, when he used to get up, he would say, Ya Hadi. That's the name of Allah that he will say, right? Where that hidayat, that reflection, that tawassul, that connection to that name, that he's about to get up and about to walk. So he's using that name, for example. Or before prayers, he would say, Astaghfirullah, the Ghufraniyat, Innahu kana ghaffara. Allah is the one who's Ghafurur Rahim. So the manifestation of that name, connection with that name, although that name is already existing, but I'm opening my heart for that light to shine on me. Like, for example, when we recite Munaja in Shaban, we say, Wasma du'ai idha da'utu. We are saying, Oh Allah, I call you, Wasma, listen to my call. Allah is always listener. Allah is Sami, and He's Sami, and He's listening all the time, right? And His listening is not somewhere there, it's right here as well. Even if I do Najwa, Munajat, whisper it, Allah listens, right? He's everywhere. But it's actually that sama'at of Allah, that listening power of Allah is right here, but I'm not tapping into it. How am I going to tap into it? How am I going to see the name of Sami of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Wasma du'a idha da'utuk. When I will sit in a state of dua, then that name of Allah will reflect on me. I'm opening my heart for that name to shine in my heart. I'm opening my heart so that Allah is Ghafoor and Rahim to shine in my heart. I'm opening my heart and my wujud so that risk opens towards me, right? Where is all this? Is right here. It's not somewhere else that is going to come. Allah is everywhere, right? So dunya is a place where you have all of these different names of Allah. There is samat of Allah, there is basirat of Allah, there is ilm of Allah, there is hidayat of Allah, right? There's khilqat of Allah. But how am I engaging with that? What's my relationship with these things? So we have to increase our capacity to engage with this. And that's why the month of Ramadan, right, becomes that tool, that power, that assistance, that vehicle, that medium through which we could engage. He has made it that even your breath is tasbih. Even your sleeping is considered as tasbih in this month. A person who sleeps is as if he is doing ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is out of His mercy. He's so merciful, He's so kind, He's so caring, right? One verse of Quran, He says, as if you finish the whole Quran in the month. That means that in a regular month, if I finish a Quran, how close I get? in this month, if I recite one verse, I come that close. Right? This is the month, so that we benefit from, so that we push ourselves a bit, with a bit of sleeplessness that we have, waking up at Sahri, so on and so forth, right? So therefore, it is the way how we approach, in regards, and that's how the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam were. They were always in that state of presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even their enemies, for them, they cared for them. Like as we said, if Allah is Rahman, His Rahmaniyat is here. And who is the representative of that Rahmaniyat? You are. You are the Khalifatullah. You should be Rahman for others. That's why they were Rahman even towards Ibn Muljim, even towards Shimr, even towards enemies. They were Rahman. They manifested that Rahmaniyat. They tried to save them. They tried to protect them. They tried to advise them. They tried to take care of them. The fourth Imam, and when they started to attack the Bani Umayyah after the Qiyam, of the Tawwabin, all of these people were rebelling and going against because they killed the grandson. In Medina, the fourth Imam allowed one of the killers of his own brother Ali Asghar, Ali Akbar, give him the safe refuge in his house. When Imam said his name, the fourth Imam took his name, whatever that name was, I'm forgetting. He says, how do you know him? How do you know me? He says that, do you know me? He says, I'm Sajjad. You are the one who killed my brother. But what fourth Imam is doing? People were after his life. Imam is giving protection, to this person. Right? Why? Because this man have come to him for seeking protection. Dua namaz ghufayla that we recite. Right? The fourth Imam, according to a narration, says that he taught this namaz to Yazid. Everybody said, how come? Because they say if you do namaz ghufayla, your dua is answered. It's guaranteed. You will be forgiven, whatever you ask in salat ghufayla. Then Imam said, why did you teach him this? He said, our duty, our job is to give. We cannot deprive people from giving guidance. When they ask, we have to give. We cannot deprive them. Who are we to stop? Sixth Imam, the same way, he's on his deathbed. He says, from the inheritance, give it to the one who have poisoned him. They said, he poisoned you. He said, the Quran says, the family members, the relationships are made by Allah. There's a verse in Surah Ra'd, which says, Allah have made rishtedar. Allah have made family members. When Allah have made me his rishtedar, his family member, how can I cut that? Who am I to cut that? When Allah have made him, although he is a bad person, although he is the enemy. But who am I to cut? Right? So that's how they were when it comes to even the enemy. Why? Because they were seeing these names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they lived up. They were the embodiment of these names on this earth. They represented that. You have that aspect of them. Yes, there will be many questions here. I know how come they, for example, even judge, they were the judges, they were the imams, for example, Ibn Muljim was killed by Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba, right, as a hukm, a shari'i. And even there, if you look at it in the wasiyat of, Imam Ali, he says that, if I die with this, then you do exactly what he has done. Given me a blow, give him that blow. And if he lives with that, leave him. And on top of this, forgive him, which is good to do that. He has mentioned it to his own killer. Right? And if I live, I know what I have to do with him. If I don't die with this, wound, I know what I have to do with him. Don't do anything. If I die, you do all of these different stages. In the end, he also says forgive, and forgiveness is better. And in return, Imam Hassan says that the only reason we carried out is this hukum, this law, is because we did not want to have, lawlessness in the country. If the Khalifa is killed, if the person is forgiven, there will be lawlessness. They will go kill other people as well. So that was the reason where Imam Hassan alayhi salam mentions in the narration that was the reason. So what I'm trying to say that yes, you have that aspect, because they are also adl ilahi, right? They are also the adl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are also the rahmaniyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They give guidance to the maximum level. They are the one, our Rahman, and in the end. So, dunya becomes that if is the place, is the, loci, is the pivotal reality of these names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If one purifies oneself and unveils these names and would be living with these names and will be engaging with these names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world. And that's how the Ahl Bayt alayhi salam were. In the last, as we always do, a zikr musibat, which is very important, and especially in the month of Ramadan, as every breath of ours is ibadat, and one of the greatest zikr and ibadat is the Masaib of Ahl Bayt alayhi salam. That even after being on that level, we have seen that how much the dunya have given trouble to them. As they say that when the Khafila of Imam Hussain alayhi salam was taken in Sham, people were giving sadaqah to Ahl Bayt. And Bibi Zainab would say that we are Ahl Bayt. Sadaqah is haram on us. Sadaqah is not given to us. We are Ahl Bayt alayhi salam. And in this crowd, as they were arrested and they were taken away, there was this lady who came down, from the roof, and she says that, I heard that this is the head of my Agha, my Mawla, because I had prayed that my Agha, my Mawla comes, because the head, when it was trying to move from there, it was not moving from her house. And then she said, who is this? She says, she was informed that they were prisoners of war and people are making fun. Then she says that, because my Agha, my master, Hussein, have said not to make fun of prisoners. Then her name is mentioned as Shireen, it is also in Noha and Marsiya, we take her name. And then here, they say that, well, if you come and take a look, this is the very head of your master Hussein. And then she comes down and she says that, I have my Agha, my master had promised that he will come to my house, but not in this way. And then she converses with this lady, and they says, who are you? Then Zainab says, take a look, closer look, who am I? She moves the hair from her face and says, Zainab, oh my princess, it is you. Yes, we have been made prisoners here. And then it's been mentioned that she tried to bring chador, she tried to bring hijab, makna for them, but the Ahl Bayt were pushed once again towards the courtyard of Yazid, in which, that's why Imam Sajjad says, the most difficult for us was Ash-Sham, Ash-Sham, Ash-Sham. They say, why Ash-Sham, Ash-Sham, Ash-Sham? He says, first thing was that we were stationed outside the Sham for a very long time, for more than 48 hours. We were just waiting so that they decorate the whole city. That's one Ash-Sham. And the second Ash-Sham is that when we were in the courtyard of Yazid, one of the persons said that he wants to take Sakina as a slave girl. And then when this person said, I want to buy Sakina, then Fizza came and she said, what are you saying? This is Sakina, the princess. This is the daughter of Hussein. And the clan and the tribe of Fizza, they came out and they said, we'll never allow this. But imagine what Zainab would have thought. Imagine what Imam Zainul Abidin, that they are saying they want to buy Sakina. And the third Ash-Sham for Imam Zainul Abidin was then when this little Sakina takes the head of the father and crying, she sits down because she was remembering father, and they send the head of Hussein, and Sakina was holding the head of Hussein, and she sits down and she is speechless, she is not moving. Zainab says, oh Sajjad, look at Sakina, why she is not speaking or saying anything? And Imam Sajjad alayhi salam shakes the shoulder of Sakina and says, Pupi amma inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. In that very prison, Sakina was buried. Imam Zainul Abidin in chains. There is no question of ghusl and kafan. In that very burned kurta, in that very burned shirt, the Sakina was left alone in Sham. And today as well, we have Zawar on the Haram and on the graves of Imam Zadeh, of children and grandchildren of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, but the very daughter of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. There is no zawar there. May Allah protect the haram of Bibi Zainab and Bibi Sakina from the enemies. Allah lanatullah ala qawm az-zalimin sayalam alladhina zalamu ayyamun qalibin yanqalibun bi Fatimata wa abiha wa ba'liha wa baniha wa sirr al-mustawdi'a fiha بعدد ما أحاط به علمك بمولاتي حضرت شہزادی سکینہ سلام اللہ علیہ یا اللہ 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 یا رحمان یا رحیم یا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك يا قاضي الحاجات يا كافي المهمات إنك على كل شيء قدير رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة لأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات, especially for the marhumin of the sponsors of Iftar Niyas tonight and all your marhumin. Al-Fatiha ma salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alayka ya Nabi Allah. Assalamu alayka ya khayr khalqillah wa khatam al-nabiyyin. Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Assalamu alayka ya Fatima al-Zahra Sayyidati Nisa'il Alameen. Assalamu alayka ya Khadijat al-Kubra al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Muhammad Hasan al-Mushtaba. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah al-Husayn wa Tissat al-Ma'sumeen min Zurriyat al-Husayn. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين بالخصوص سيدي ومولاي أبو الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين وأختك زينب وأم كلثوم وبنتك رقية وسكينة ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك علي زين العابدين قرة عين الناظرين. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر بعد النبي. السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام عليك يا باب الهوائج الكاظم الطاهر الطهر. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء يا علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام عليك يا علي الجواد. السلام عليك يا علي الحادي النقي. السلام عليك يا أبا محمد حسن العسكري. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان أجل الله لك فرج وجعلنا من أعوانك وأنصارك والمستشهدين بين يدي ورحمة الله وبركاته.